In this video, we will be speaking about tuples. We will give their intuitive definition, their proper Python definition, and in the Jupyter notebook, we will be playing a little bit with how to define tuples and how to access the elements inside of these tuples. Okay, so let's get to it. First of all, we have the definition. A tuple is basically a finite ordered list of elements, and a tuple with n elements is called an n-tuple. 3-tuple, 4-tuple, 5-tuple. Tuples in Python are defined using round parentheses instead of square brackets as lists were. And they can contain, just as lists could, heterogeneous elements. So all the elements in one tuple can be of different types. Let's see this. For example, here we have this definition of a variable called a tuple. Very originally, we have the round brackets here, and we have the definition that we can run. Okay, I have several elements inside of my tuple, and I have just defined it as a succession, as a sequence, as a list if you want to, of different elements. The first element in my tuple is 4.5, the second is 9, the third one is a string, and fourth one is a Boolean value. Okay, and as you can see, with the print here, I can see that I have defined my tuple. And when I print its type, the type is, unsurprisingly perhaps, a tuple. All of the elements inside of one tuple are called fields, elements or fields. The goal of tuples the main goal of tuples is to encapsulate information, to gather together information of different types. Very frequently, this is used to represent complex ideas. Complex here means ideas that are made up of different parts. For example, if I wanted to represent the information of a student within one subject, I might want to have, for example, their name, their student number. These are pieces of data of different types. I might also want to include there the list of subjects that they are taking, the mark that they are getting at this moment in my subject, or the list of marks. So the aggregation of all of these different pieces of information related to the same thing can be done using a tuple. If we use tuples in this way, we are taking the first step towards something called object-oriented programming, where this notion of encapsulating information within one structure is very important. And today we will be speaking very briefly about that, but we will be having another course later, full course on object-oriented programming. In addition to this use as a way to encapsulate complex information, tuples are also useful in some Python code as a way to group together or ungroup together different types of information. So it's also convenient when doing some types of loops and some types of manipulations, and we will be seeing a little bit about this here too. So we have seen our first tuple, and we want to do some accesses. For example, first of all, we defined it using the round parentheses here. We can define a tuple without having to use those round parentheses. If we just make a sequence of elements and give them, separate them by commas, then automatically they get put inside of a tuple. We can access the fields inside of a tuple in the same way as we did with lists. We can index them. So if I run a tuple, remember a tuple was here, a tuple of 1, I will be accessing position 1 in my tuple. I can also use negative indices if I want to, and I can slice them just as I did with lists. With this, we can see that some functions like, for example, len, that gave me the list for some data structures, also work with lists. So we have seen how tuples are used to represent complex information, to gather it together, and we have seen how to create them using either a list of elements separated by commas or enclosing the whole thing in round parentheses, and we have seen how to access each of their elements or fields, which is just as we did with lists, using positive, negative indices, and we can also use slicing.